Welcome, low ego action heroes. I'm Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. We are a full service CX and UX consultancy. And this is my Axure 10 Core Skills course. I've been using Axure since February 2011, and I've been teaching it for many, many years. And in fact, I've been one of Axure's recommended trainers since 2014. This course is designed to take you from super Axure newbie or Axure afraid all the way through to confident intermediate. So if you've landed on this one video, there are many, many others. Please check our Axure lessons playlist for a lot more videos about using Axure. The Delta CX YouTube channel has over 500 videos on it as of when I'm recording this in December 2021, and I hope you'll subscribe and join in some of our live streams. I'm live usually 3 or 4 times a week with teaching UX research and design, talking about CX, helping people get into the profession, helping leaders and managers, and of course, don't forget Tuesday, office hours, Ask Me Anything. So subscribe and hang out here. So thanks for being here. Please subscribe and let's jump into that next Axure lesson.
We've already had a few lessons where we got some previews into dynamic panels, but that was probably maybe a little scary or confusing. Now let's just take an entire lesson to take a look at what are dynamic panels and when would we use these. So a dynamic panel can be created 2 ways. There is a dynamic panel widget, so you can drag something out and create a dynamic panel. Or if you start building things, let's say I start building an image and a button. Oop, that's pretty ugly. You know what I'm saying. We could say, oh, wait a minute, that really should be in a dynamic panel. Now, you're probably not thinking that yet because you're still thinking, what are dynamic panels? But you could take the widgets that you've created, select them, context menu, click, and say, create dynamic panel. So those are the 2 ways to create the dynamic panel. Now, what the heck is the dynamic panel? A dynamic panel is kind of like a picture frame with different pictures in it. So the panel itself is, again, I like to think of it as a picture frame, and I always want to give it a name. But if you take a look over here in our outline, we have a dynamic panel with state 1. What the heck is a state? I'll tell you in a moment. And then we have a dynamic panel where state 1 has a button and an image. So you can see that's clearly this panel because state 1 has a button and an image. So a state, so every dynamic panel has one state by default, and really the state is the picture in the picture frame. So that way we can have a dynamic panel that has multiple states, multiple pictures that are in the picture frame. These things can be shown or they can be waiting behind the scenes for you to write an interaction that will show them and put that picture in the frame. For example, think about a carousel, which we're going to be building soon. The carousel is one piece of real estate on your page, and there's different messages or images in it. And that takes up one space like this dynamic panel does, but it's got different pictures that could be in the frame. Those are different states of the panel. And if I want to name a panel state, I can come over to the outline and I can click on it. I clicked on it twice, but slowly, not a fast double click, because then Axure thinks you want to edit what's in the state of the panel. I did a click and then a small pause and another click. And we're going to do lots of dynamic panel lessons later, so you'll see me name these different things. But for example, later on when we do easy cheesy accordions, there will be a closed state of the accordion, and I can context menu click and say add state. There will be an open state of the accordion. Now that means that there are 2 different pictures that we can put into the frame. Now, when I say pictures, I don't mean literally. You can put anything you want in a dynamic panel. If I double click on the panel, I'm now in an edit mode, and you can see this because of the dotted line. Now it's different in Axure 9 and before. I'm in Axure 10, but I am now editing, and I could throw in a circle, and I could say closed state, and I could move to the next state with these chevrons, and I could say this one's got a paragraph. And again, this is kind of ugly and wacky, but the idea is that you can edit each state, and by default, Axure will show the state that is at the top of the list. So it's not that these are layered, it's more that one is being shown and the rest of them are waiting in the wings for you to write an interaction that would show them. Now, if by default we wanted to show the other one, all I have to do is drag and drop it so it's at the top. Now Axure says, okay, by default, this panel is going to show the open state. That's the picture that's in the frame. Or if you want the default to be the closed state, drag it to the top. That's the picture that's in the frame. Now, if you have a state of a panel and you wish that you could unstate of a panel it, what people sometimes do is they go into the state and they copy or paste or cut from what's in there. But there is an easier way. If you have a state of a panel, and I'm just going to click away from everything so I can get this purple mask, which tells us this is a dynamic panel that people can see. If I context menu click, I can say break away current state. And what that does is it will separate out as widgets whatever had been in the first state of the panel. And again, what was the first state? It was the one on the top. So if you want to reorder it so that the one you want to break away is at the top, you would do that first, and then your breakaway. I'm going to hit undo because I'm going to keep that panel the way it was. Let's say we break away this one. It's only got one state, it's got some stuff in it, and we might say, you know what, this doesn't have to be in a panel, it's just an image and a button, nothing special here, not going to do anything wonderful, so let's break it away. Now we just have widgets on our canvas. Now, how do we know when we need a dynamic panel? I like to say, if something is going to show, hide, move, change, or be pinned, you probably want a dynamic panel. Now, why am I saying probably? For stuff that's going to change, meaning the state of the panel will change, you'll put a different picture in the frame, you definitely need a dynamic panel. And we're going to learn later when we pin the panel to the browser, you have to have a dynamic panel. You cannot just say, I want this picture to always be pinned and it's always right here. There is no function for pinning a picture. You can only pin a panel. So sometimes you're making stuff into a panel that's got no reason to be a panel other than you want to pin it to the browser, like a website header that gets pinned or a live chat widget that is pinned or feedback button. So that's your pinned and that's your changed. What about show, hide, and move? Now, y'all know I'm a little bit old school, having used Axure for over 10 years now, and I've got some old habits from before Axure could do certain things. So we are going to learn later that sometimes things show and hide, and sometimes things get moved. So for example, I could say that this panel by default is hidden. I can click this eyeball, and it is hidden. Another way is to context menu click and say set visible. Now people can see it. Or set hidden. Now they don't see it by default. But in the newer years of Axure, Axure started allowing you to do that with anything. I could come over to this image and I could say, yeah, you know what? People can't see this image. You know, they can't see anything. So you can set whatever you want to be shown or hidden, but I have an old school habit, which I will kind of be teaching you, which is I like to put things into panels when they show, hide, move, change, or are pinned. Now, what's the alternative? Yes, you could do a single thing and say that was hidden. The new thing that people like to do is to group stuff. They will take a bunch of widgets and they will say, hey, Axure, group these. Here's our grouping in our toolbar, or we can context menu click and say group. Now, Axure, you can see over here in our outline, they get a folder. This is now, the folder tells us this is a group. We can name the group if we want. And what the group mostly means is that if I go to click and drag these, they will move as a group. They will be treated as a group. If I copy and paste them, copy paste, They came as a group. Now, sometimes I will group stuff, especially like this, when I am trying to do maybe a grid of stuff. And let's say my grid looks like this, and the visual designers watching now are crying. I will say select this, and select this. And now let's align these. So let's say maybe we align top, and maybe we equally horizontally distribute them. Looks good. But then normally I go in and I go, well, I don't need these to be in a group anymore. I'm going to ungroup them. I am a serial ungrouper. Hi, my name is Debbie, and I'm a serial ungrouper. And so I have a habit of ungrouping stuff. And you might find that you have that habit too. I just ran into somebody on LinkedIn who was like, oh my God, I'm ungrouping things. So I'm not the only one. But the problem is that if you write an interaction on a group, which you can do, so I can say, hey, and I think I show you this again in a later lesson, but just to get the hang of it a little bit, let's say this does a show or a hide, and I'm just going to say image. So just quickly. So let's say we have an interaction on the group. We've got the lightning bolt that tells us there's an interaction there, and it's show or hide an image if people click. Now let's say I come by and I say, why is this a group? I don't need a group. Ungroup. Well, now if I click away, where's my lightning bolts? It looks like my interactions are gone. This image has no interaction. This button has no interaction. So while there are a lot of Axure trainers out there or YouTubers who might say, yeah, make everything groups, build on groups, stop making dynamic panels. Number one, that's not my style. Number two, you might shoot yourself in the foot later if you are a serial ungrouper like I am. You will kill some interactions that you've written. And number three, I asked Axure specifically, does this affect Axure's performance? Will Axure be any slower if I make dynamic panels versus making groups? And they said ultimately no. Ultimately, you can affect the performance of Axure if you do have a lot of panels with a lot of states, with a lot of stuff in them. But at that point, if you've got panels with states, you didn't want groups anyway. The group wasn't going to help you there because the group can't put a different picture in the frame. The group is just a group. The dynamic panel has additional functions and even some super cool triggers and events that are unique to the dynamic panel, which means building with a group wouldn't be the right choice anyway. So for example, here in dynamic panel land, check this out. In addition to some of the typical interactions, we also get swipe left, swipe right, swipe up, and swipe down. This is for your mobile stuff. When you are prototyping for mobile, you can make it realistic by having swipe gestures. You can't build a swipe on a button. You can't build a swipe on an image. You can only build it on a panel. So sometimes you are making a panel just to have that gesture available to you. There's also these, which I teach in my advanced course, drag drop. Drag and drop are super cool, but they're kind of advanced. You might not need them yet as an Axure beginner or intermediate, but you can only drag and drop a panel. And scrolling we'll talk about later, though we're not going to write an interaction on it, but you'll learn more about it in the iframes lesson. If I click on this image, or even if I create a group, and I go into interactions, you will see there is no swiping, there is no drag and drop, there is no scrolling. So to me, grouping has limited benefits and it's got some serious drawbacks. Creating panels has a lot of benefits and very few drawbacks. So I'm going to be showing you building a lot of stuff in Axure in panels where other people show you grouped widgets. So I just have a different style, and ultimately you need to pick the style that works best for you. But I'm going to be showing you how I do it. Some people might say it's a little bit old school, but to me it is future-proofed. I am never accidentally going to undo this or mess this up by choosing a panel. So I think that's a pretty good look at panels. Let's see if there's anything we missed. Oh yeah. So there's one more thing I want you to know about panels. This was new to Axure 9, so it's also in Axure 10. And that is right now, if we go to edit the panel, which I can do double clicking it, sometimes it's a little annoying to try to work on the panel here because there's other stuff on this workspace and you can't really isolate this. In Axure 9 and 10, you can isolate it this way. Axure 8 automatically, and earlier, automatically isolated every dynamic panel state. It's new in Axure 9 and 10 that you have some different interfaces for that. So here I'm getting a look at both of my dynamic panel states. I can rename them. I can duplicate them. I can trash one of them. I don't think I can drag and drop to reorder them. No, it thinks I'm trying to select things. So you would still do that from the outline if you needed to drag to reorder them. But ultimately, this is a pretty good place to go because you can isolate them. You can look at them vertically if you want. You can look at them horizontally. You can have Axure automatically lay it out. And if you need a new panel state, you can start that here. But ultimately, I mostly work in the isolated style because trying to build it here does not compute for my brain, especially when you start having overlapped stuff and you're trying to build in here and it's like, well, what am I working on right now? So always good to isolate this, in my opinion. Another funky thing to know is that we had a lesson about how you can do a cool slow click to deal with things that are layered. So let's say this panel is kind of on top of the group. Let's drag and drop it so it's on top of the group. Let's just put it at the very top of everything, kind of ascend it to front. Now, if we wanted to work on the image, let's say these completely overlapped. If I want to work on the image and I'm having trouble finding it in the outline, I showed you how you can do a slow click to say, aha, click first on the dynamic panel, click again to get the image. And in this case, it worked. But I find that sometimes when I go to do that, if I click too fast, Axure goes, yep, you're editing your state. So be careful there. Watch for, am I editing a state of my panel, or did I do my click slow enough where I'm on the panel and now I'm on the group under it? And again, if you're not sure where you are, check your outline. But that's just my slight warning to the whole secret slow click Debbie method of dealing with stuff that is layered. But ultimately, the super slow click is still a great method, but it's a little funky in Axure 10 because of how double clicking on this, and sometimes I feel like single clicking on this, has me editing this. Okay, I think that's going to wrap up our little introduction to dynamic panels and states of a panel. But now we're going to do a whole bunch of dynamic panels in these chapter 12 lessons, and each one is going to help reinforce the idea of the dynamic panel and its states even further. So I'll see you in the next lesson.